Horus Avenges Osiris. By Egyptian Classical Tales. Brought to you by TellStory.net, stories from around the world. When Osiris was slain and Seth seized the throne of Egypt, the gods fell into uneasy silence. For years they let Seth rule, unsure, unwilling, watching. But when Horus, son of Osiris and Isis, grew to manhood, something in him could no longer stay still. He stood before the divine tribunal of the Ennead and made his claim plain.
I am the rightful heir. The throne belongs to me.
Seth looked him over the way you look at a weed that has the nerve to grow in your garden.
The throne belongs to the strong. I have held it for 80 years. What can a boy do that I cannot?
Now Ra, the sun god who presided over the tribunal, was not entirely in Horus's corner. You have to understand why. Each night, when the solar bark sailed through the dark beneath the world in Apophis, the great serpent of chaos rose from the black water to swallow it whole. It was Seth who stood at the prow. Seth who drove the spear into the serpent's throat. Seth who brought the dawn home, every single morning, without fail. Why replace a proven warrior with an untested youth? The other gods grew restless. Thoth shook his ibis head.
How long will this go on? 80 years of deliberation, while Seth does as he pleases? This has to end.
The Ennead agreed. The matter would be settled through trial and contest. And just like that, the contest was on. The first challenge was simple enough in theory. Horus and Seth would each transform into hippopotami and sink into the Nile. Whoever surfaced first would forfeit. Simple, until either of them came up for days. Watching from the bank, Isis could no longer bear it. She fashioned a copper harpoon and threw it into the murky water. It struck flesh, but the wrong flesh. Horus's cry of pain rose in bubbles from the deep.
Mother!
Shaken, she pulled the harpoon back and threw it again. This time it found Seth. He bellowed up through the current.
Isis, your own blood. Would you really strike your own brother?
And Isis, caught in that old pool of blood, called the harpoon back. When Horus exploded from the river, his fury was something to behold. His mother had let Seth go free at his expense. He did not speak. He drew his blade and cut off her head. The gods went rigid with shock. Thoth, always practical, strode forward and replaced the severed head with that of a cow. Isis lived on, changed and marked, and some say that is how she came to wear the cow horns that framed the solar disk above her brow. Ra turned on Horus.
You raised your hand against your own mother. That is no act of a king.
Horus said nothing. The tribunal moved on. Seth's next scheme was more cunning, and far more degrading. One night, while Horus slept in the open desert, Seth crept close with a plan to humiliate him before the Hall of Gods. But Horus was not quite as asleep as he seemed. He caught what Seth tried to do, held it in cupped hands, and went at once to Isis. Isis acted without hesitation. She cut off Horus's hands, now tainted by Seth's design, and threw them into the river. She fashioned new ones of gold. Then she helped Horus collect his own seed, which she spread carefully over the heads of lettuce in Seth's private garden, the ones Seth ate every single morning, without fail. At the next tribunal session, Seth arrived with a gleam in his eye and a smirk he could barely contain.
I have dominated Horus,
he announced to the assembled gods, expecting the shame to land on his nephew and the laughter to land on himself. Horus only said,
Let Thoth call the seeds. Let them speak for themselves.
Thoth raised his staff and summoned Seth's seed. It answered, from the river, far downstream. Then he called for Horus's seed. it answered from deep inside Seth himself. A silence fell over the hall that was almost physical. Then the gods began to laugh. Seth's face went dark as a desert squall. He had been outplayed completely, and every god in that hall knew it. The tribunal still would not rule. So Seth proposed one more contest. Stone boats, he insisted, nothing else. No cedar, no papyrus, no clever substitutes. Horus went into the hills, cut down a tall cedar, and built a proper boat. Then he plastered it from stem to stern with white gypsum until it gleamed like polished limestone. Seth, not to be outdone, took a chisel to the peak of an actual mountain and dragged it to the water's edge. On the day of the race, Seth's granite slab struck the surface and vanished straight to the riverbed before anyone could blink. Horus's cedar boat, smooth and pale as bleached bone, rode the current like a living thing. Seth was furious. He transformed into a hippopotamus and drove himself up beneath Horus's hull, ramming it from below. Horus grabbed his harpoon. The tribunal moved quickly to separate them before something irreversible happened, and the contest was declared inconclusive. And still Ra hesitated to rule. It was Thoth who finally moved the needle, quietly, the way Thoth did everything. He had written to Osiris in the kingdom of the dead. The reply came back. It was less a letter than a warning.
Why is my son being kept from what is his? I do not forget who made the grain grow, who brought the flood in its season, who taught the rites that honor the gods. Give Horus the throne, or I will send up from my domain what is within me, and what is within me does not love the light.
Everyone in that hall knew what Osiris meant. The dead obeyed him without question. Every ancestor, every fallen king, every body laid in the dust of Egypt, all his, already. Ra went very quiet. The Ennead assembled one last time. The vote was taken. Seth's hold on the throne was set aside. The white crown and the red crown of Egypt were placed upon Horus's head. But the story does not quite end there. Somewhere in those 80 years of clashes, accounts differ on the exact moment, Seth had torn out Horus's left eye. Some say it happened in their first open battle on the desert plain. Others say Seth disguised himself as a black pig and struck Horus from behind, ambushing him when his guard was down. However it happened, the eye was gone. Horus learned to see differently until Thoth tracked it down and restored it, and when it came back brighter, more luminous, lit from within with something no struggle could extinguish. Horus took that eye down to the underworld himself. He descended to where his father sat enthroned among the dead, and he set it before Osiris. No grand speech, no ceremony, just the offering itself. Osiris received it in silence. Perhaps no words were equal to the occasion. This was the eye his son had lost in the long fight to reclaim what was his. There is nothing more sacred in all of creation than that. As for Seth, he was not destroyed. He was too powerful for that, and too necessary. Ra took him back onto the solar bark. And every night, when Apophis rises from the black water beneath the world to swallow the sun, it is still Seth who stands at the prow, driving that iron spear home, holding the dark at bay. Chaos cannot be killed. It can only be held. So the world settled into its shape. Horus upon the throne of Egypt, ruling the living as his father had done. Osiris in the deep, judging the dead with patient justice. Seth riding the edge of night, raging where chaos always waits to return. And along the Nile, from the cataracts to the delta, the people called their pharaoh the living Horus, knowing that somewhere above them, the order of things had, at last, been set right.